In your studies, what are the biggest triggers for inflammation in the body? Is it environment? Is it what we consume? Is it toxins on our body that we're putting on ourselves? Is it stress hormones? What are these biggest triggers for inflammation?
Well, I mean, you listed them all. So okay. So the way the body works, it integrates influences from multiple sources, particularly the central nervous system, the brain, and it's sort of like this supercomputer applying artificial intelligence to these influences, and then it extracts patterns and decides on relevance and salience, and based on that salience, it makes responses. In terms of this needs to be, we need to adjust this system, we need to adjust this system. And it's doing obviously a phenomenal job because a lot of the influences that we're exposed to, the brain in evolution has never encountered. The chemicals, the kind of food that we eat, humans never were exposed to that kind of food. The visual experiences, the brain and the brain-gut system, because I really always like to keep those together, and we can talk about this later, why, is a master in this, in this computation of salience and responding to it. Mm-hmm. And that system has worked so well that it's kept us alive as a species, and we're thriving. I'm not sure what's happening now. The salience, there's some sort of a mismatch now between the salience assessment and what's good for us on the planet, but there will be corrections in that as well, I'm sure.
Right. Now, do you think is the brain influencing the body more, or is the gut influencing the brain more?
So you could, I've compared this to a central government and local governments in the states and counties, and there's a lot of influence that comes from the body, and that plays a big role in our emotions, in our emotional states. And as I'll talk about, there's a lot of stuff now going on with this low-grade immune system activation that most people are now exposed to because of our diet, and that's a stream of information that constantly goes to the brain. Mm-hmm. You don't feel it. You don't. It doesn't hurt. Doesn't generate any symptoms. But over time, it does change your brain structurally and functionally. So a big influence subliminally that goes to the brain all the time. And also a big thing. So people have said, we can generate artificial intelligence, but it won't have emotions because it doesn't have the body to send this constant signals to it. But then on the other hand, the brain is obviously the most sophisticated computer in the universe up to now. And it sends signals to the body all the time. There's a part of the nervous system called the autonomic nervous system that reaches pretty much every cell in your body. You have a sensory part, the vagus nerve, that reports anything that goes on anywhere constantly to the brain. And then the brain has a system to respond to that. And again, it can influence every cell in distinct patterns. It doesn't always kick in because they would be overwhelmed. It kicks in when it's necessary, when there's a threat or when it's,
I'm curious about, I don't know if you've studied this, but I'm curious about when human beings look themselves in the mirror and they see themselves and they shape an identity, they perceive an identity. And maybe they look chiseled. They're like this Greek god that's just chiseled. They're athletic, but they don't believe they're healthy or fit for whatever reason. Their identity has made them look like they don't love themselves, or they don't believe that they look good, or whatever it is. Is there anything to play around the shape for ourselves, the image of ourselves, and it making us either healthier or more susceptible to diseases or a weakened immune system? Am I out there too much by asking this? But I'm curious.
Yeah, no. So this is definitely something that happens a lot. To a lot of people, that their identity it's obviously shaped early on in life. Typically, there could also be genetic factors, but most of it will happen early in life. The feedback you get from your parents, and from your friends, if that's generally positive or negative. If it's negative, you can have two effects. One is it can really damage your self-identity and your self-worth, or you could rebel against it and say, I'm not going to accept this. I'm creating my own identity. I think it will have, almost certainly, it does have. I mean, anything that happens in the brain in terms of these emotional, identity. Like in my own research, I've always been more concerned about the emotional influences on the body. So any emotion that you experience, either chronically or so more of these emotions that are present all the time, background emotions, that has a mirror image in your body.
Really? So give me an example. If you're feeling an emotion of not enough, or lack, or sick, or stress, if you're feeling and thinking that consistently, then the body will mirror that?
The body will mirror it, and so I focus primarily on the gut, because it's a kind of a unique organ because it has all these other things in it, not just the gut wall, but the immune system and the nervous system of the gut and hormonal system. But so this is not separate, this is like, just as some people, you look at them and you look at their face and you can tell what's going on, if you're good in that. The furrows between your eyebrows and, it's unless you're a poker player, you exhibit these emotions in your face. But the same thing happens in every part of your body, your heart and your, I'm not sure about organs like the kidneys and the liver. They're not, they're sort of more mechanical devices or chemical devices, not as much these computational as, so the heart is basically a pump, and but the gut is something that is in a different realm. It very sensitive to emotions, and I would say
the gut is that why you feel butterflies, you feel sick when you see something, you feel it in your gut.
Yeah, and also this self-identity. I'm, quite honestly, before you asked the question, I never even thought about this, but I'm absolutely convinced.
I'm fascinated by this.
I'm absolutely convinced that your gut has a mirror image of your sense of identity.
Really?
Yeah. I think if you have an inferiority complex, that will affect the gut. And now, since we talked a lot about the gut microbiome that lives inside the gut, which communicates very closely with the gut, even that system gets these messages, from the brain. And this is different. So if you are threatened by a wild animal, you will have a peak in your stress response, and within a couple of seconds or minutes, it will go down and be normal again. With these background emotions or something like a sense of identity, that's with you all the time.
Always. You're always thinking and feeling like I'm not enough, or imposter syndrome or something.
And it's ingrained in your unconscious. It comes out in your dreams.
So what does that do to the body or the immune system if you're kind of constantly thinking these things, or have a belief system that I'm not enough, or comparing to someone else or something else, or in lack or in scarcity? What does that do to the immune system, the gut, the body?
Yeah, so I'm talking about the immune system. If you have this, I talked about this acute threat, or this acute emotion of an acute stress, it will temporarily increase the activity of your immune system. Because
like spike up cortisol or something.
Of your stress system.
Gotcha.
But if it's chronic, it has a totally different effect on it. So often the opposite effect, and it will. I mean, there's many studies coming out on this now. That even early adverse life events that play a big role in shaping this identity. Have been found to have an effect on the gene expression pattern in your immune cells, in some of your immune cells, which in an adult person. So there's a memory in these immune cells, that reflects what happened to you at the age of,
5, 7, 9, whatever.
And that obviously shapes when these immune cells are called into action, that shapes the immune response.
There's a trigger that you'll feel when you see something that reflects what you went through, right?
So there's a memory, there's an immune memory. I mean, there's clearly also this brain memory in our unconscious. It's probably the way the body is organized that some of the systems, particularly the nervous system and immune system, can form these memories that then later really influence many functions in your body and then also your behavior. A lot of people, that anger sticks with them, or the fear, and then that's because it reverberates in these gut circuits.
Really?
And between the gut and the brain, and it sets up this vicious cycle, and the brain cannot easily shut it off unless you train yourself to do it.
How do you train yourself to let go of anger?